So on to our next session, whose title says it all, Fintech Rewrites Travel and Loyalty. We have a hybrid panel. We have Spencer Lee, CEO of BIGLIFE. We have Louise Daley, Deputy CEO of Accor Asia Pacific. We have Patel, Principal Executive Officer of the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And their moderator is Timothy Hughes, Vice President, Corporate Development, Agoda. Over to you, Tim.
Hello, everybody.
I know. Hi, Pat. How are you? The true hybrid panel.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? The ground control. I'm not coming in.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Major Tim to ground control. Can you hear me?
Hi, Tim.
Am I coming through loud and clear? Is there any other way for Tim Hughes to come through other than loud and clear?
Too loud and clear? Is there such a thing?
Welcome, everybody, to this panel. We've got a lot of fantastic stuff to get through. If we have the first slide up, Jerry, we'll set the scene. So this slide, for those of you who can't see, because I know there's not a lot of easy access to the slide, is a graph showing e-wallet penetration throughout the world. On the furthest left-hand side of the graph, we see penetration levels in the famous sort of cash economies that love cash, like Germany. And on the furthest right-hand side, we see the economies that are adopting e-wallets the fastest. And we know these names: China, Singapore, Southeast Asia. This sort of tells a story about what's going on in e-wallets. Now, Pat, maybe you can kick us off.
Oh my God,
What is it about South that has the e-wallet in such a high penetration level?
Sure, that's a good question. So I think that this graph is definitely interesting. And if you look, there's a lot of European countries down the nascent early adopters kind of, or late adopters kind of side. And if you look from that perspective, it's because card transactions, card penetration, acceptance is so high in a number of these marketplaces that it doesn't make sense to have an e-wallet as such. And so people are kind of entrenched in using card-based products. But card penetration in some of these markets towards the mature end are quite low. And so that has kind of driven the necessity element of it, because, you know, if you've just got cash and just cash, then the alternative to that is e-wallets. And I think you're going to come on to this, but Grab and Gojek have played a big role in e-wallets. And they've kind of started from different starting points. So one's come in from a ride-hailing perspective, the other from a gig economy perspective, and then they've just grown these kind of captive audiences and grown payment services on top of those. So yeah, I think that there's a number of factors, but I would say necessity and the rise of Grab and Gojek.
So is e-wallet, is it a leapfrog technology, or is it just the card in a different format? Does it change the nature of payments, or is it just adapting to the circumstances of those particular markets?
So e-wallets, technically, you can load cards onto there, yes, but you can top up as well. So you can do the prepaid form. And so there's a mixture of ways you do that. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's a leapfrog technology as such. I just think it's a convenience, because if you think China have had this for some time now, and the first form of kind of e-wallets were in Kenya. I don't see Kenya on this map, but Kenya with M-Pesa probably about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been around for a while. I just think it's a cultural thing more than anything else. The ability to be able to use your phone is quite cool as opposed to cash.
Yeah, so let's build on that mega app story you started. Obviously, as you say, Grab and Gojek sort of came into payments, starting with ride-hailing. WeChat came into payments along with Kakao and Line, starting with Talk. But they all found their way into payments. Now, Louise, let's bring you in here. What does that mean for travel? Is it too late for travel to get into payments or have its own payment-based player, or is it just a product that sort of sits inside the travel universe? Where do you see this all wrapping in with travel, Louise?
Well, I think if you look at hotels versus airlines or OTAs, Airbnb, for example, I mean, what we have in these sort of ecosystems, and you look at hotels, we are not the merchant of record necessarily. The hotel management company is not the merchant of record. And what you need in order to drive an e-wallet is really large transaction volume, right? And you look at where it is. I mean, China, massive transaction volume. India, the same. Singapore, a small but very digital market. You've got a number of wallets there. Indonesia, I mean, Philippines, you've got Gcash, etc. I think in terms of hospitality and travel, a wallet, if it was going to happen, would come more from, say, airline or maybe an OTA, because you also need this frequency. And in a low frequency environment, it's very hard to get stickiness in a wallet. So I think for the foreseeable future, travel will be a product within somebody else's payments ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that completely makes sense, because I think it's that daily adoption, it's that daily active use.
Yeah, if you see what, say, Singapore Airlines did with CrisPay, right? I mean, it's still very, very small, but a very interesting product based on blockchain with a really interesting conversion model. You know, I think if somebody really got that and you know, worked on that hard, that could be an amazing product. But they take a very loyal and engaged audience, but then they grow the transactions that they and that's
you're working in a company that sort of bridges travel and loyalty and points. Do you agree with that? Is the travel company locked out of payments, or is there something there for the travel player?
Well, thanks for the question. We are a big believer of the payment, right? If you look at the whole AirAsia group growth, believe it or not, AirAsia group of airlines started with so-called online payment, right? 18, 19 years ago, to get the lowest fare, best deal is log on to AirAsia.com, right? And definitely you need payment to support it. And like, you know, one of the panel just mentioned as well, Gojek, Grab, similar to AirAsia, right? Your product online is all about payment, because payment is very important in e-commerce. You're supposed to make it frictionless, make payment easy, and etc. etc. So all these things, I believe that is also about frequency, which I truly agree as well. So I think that it's never too late. It's really about knowing your business, it's knowing about your volume and the ecosystem, and it's also about how you.
Well, let's get the audience involved. Maybe we're up to the first poll. We're going to ask ourselves, what is the impact that COVID have the acceptance rate of digital payments? Digital payments now or have an impact? So to get that poll up, waiting for the answer on the audience, what do you think? Is COVID an accelerant, payments slow down, or did I come through there okay? Spencer, there's other polls working, I can't quite see, but the question was, do we think that COVID is an accelerant, a slowdown effect, or have no impact?
Our deal will just grow bigger and bigger, will just accelerate.
Right. Why is that? Why do you think COVID accelerates digital payment?
Well, today, if you look at Touchwood, the only positive things out of COVID is, besides spending more time with loved ones and etc., it's actually not everybody is on the digital platform. You need to have a strong payment gateway channel. You need to have a frictionless payment, and you need this in order for you to scale. There's no other way out. So be it fintech, whether is it any sort of wallet, whether you have load card base or whether you just a pure transactional base, you need this. This is really survival.
Yeah.
I think, Tim, it's actually, for me, accelerated the change in consumer behaviour, right? And that's what's given, you know, volume and velocity to any digital payment form, right? Because consumers have had to do it. I mean, in Singapore now, you go to a hawker centre and you can pay with, you know, SG Active or a whole range of wallets. that, you know, you were carrying cash all the time to go to the hawker centre in Singapore. I mean, that to me is, you know, quite a big change for both the hawker store owner and the consumer.
Yeah.
It's essentially the migration of cash, basically. It's the migration of cash to digital payments, and that whole kind of low-touch economy, which is impacting every business in one way, shape, or form. And so that has happened. But these trends were happening anyway. There was already a trend towards digital. All it's done is maybe 5 years worth of trends or 3 years worth of trends have happened within 3 days of lockdown, essentially. So,
Yep. Well, to be honest, to share with you, I think now my parents is using more e-wallet payment than me. They will tell me this is the best deal, buy now. Not imagine prior to MCO. So it's all about, I think everything will just speed up and pretty much how the whole ecosystem will support each other.
Yeah. So let's move on to another type of currency. Let's have a chat about loyalty points. So maybe Jared, if you could pull up slide number 2. This slide number 2 is a little bit older data here. It's 2017, but I think it still holds, and it gives a sense of just how enormous, maybe overwhelming, loyalty points are. This slide says that there are 10,000 loyalty programs worldwide, 7.6 billion members, with 48 trillion points earned and stored. Now, to put that in perspective, I checked with the New York Federal Reserve, called them personally, and they tell me that there's 1.2 billion US dollars in circulation. So there are 4 times the number of reward points in circulation as there are American currency. Now, Spencer, you're the points guy. Let's start with you again. Tell us about these numbers. Are there like too many points in the world? What's going on?
Sure, thanks. I really love this slide, right? This keep me awake every night. Well, first of all, I think we contributed about 13 billion points of the whole ecosystem here. So today, in BIGLIFE, which is the operator, the big loyalty program, we have issued about 13 billion points in the market. And this is a great slide. I look at this as a huge opportunity. It's really about how do you maximize it and how do you really give real value to the points. So for us, it's all about, we internally, our key focus is really to help all our members to really get real economic value out of the points. So in the short, we actually have one task. How do we democratize points? It's not so much about how many points. If you remember, at one point in time, during this conference as well, there's also a question, is there one too many OTAs in the market? But look at today, how many OTAs is in the market?
Yeah.
So come back to the points, it's all about who has a clear economy value, how good is your points, is your points really truly and out, so to speak, open loop in the sense that you can use it within your ecosystem and beyond? Is your point a form of payment just within your ecosystem, or is it something that you can really enrich your holders, your members? That's why I say this is an amazing slide. It's really who that can unlock this. And at Big Loyalty, we are really focusing in democratize the points and really give value back to the points.
Physical humans in MBS. What do you guys think? Who's unlocking points the best?
I think, Tim, it's quite a travesty that there are that many points in circulation, right? And if you looked at the statistics of sort of satisfaction with loyalty programs, you'd understand why there are so many points in circulation, right? So 90% of people have a negative perception of loyalty programs, and 60% would change their loyalty program or their merchant if they had a better loyalty program. And then there's loads of statistics on what causes this like minus 5% net promoter score on loyalty programs, because they can't use the points. Right? So companies previously thought that points were there as a hook, but God, we hated it if the customer redeemed them, right?
Yeah.
And it was just such a weird way of looking at loyal customers. And so we have to change now, and we have all the technology underlay to ensure that we can allow people to burn their points, because it does lead to more engagement. And to me, that's the secret. The loyalty points are a currency, so there's a cost to them.
Yeah.
And companies have long held the belief that, you know, they would celebrate points expiry.
Right.
Which
Yes.
is kind of like, you know, you have to celebrate points usage, and you know,
And
it's a bit of a seismic shift.
Currencies, if there is too much of the currency, it gets devalued. That is just that's the nature of currency. If you print too many points,
Right.
you end up like the Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe out of control, right? Yeah.
Well,
so
just
what-
to add on to it,
I think the
just
interesting
to add on
point
to it, if I may, I think it's really totally agree in a sense to give back value. So I really love that point that you need to really give value in a sense that it's more than just within your ecosystem. So for us, we created a product called Big Exchange. If today you go to our apps, whether it's on Big Loyalty or Airja.com apps, you can find Big Exchange, whereby it's an in-house built tool, a technology platform that allows all your points from all your credit card partners that we have around the region, including in Singapore as well. You can change your points online, on demand, instantly to big points. And immediately you can use the points as a form of payment. So this is why I totally agree in a sense that you cannot just be traditionally a so-called loyalty program point just to speak. That's why our job here is really to help our members to really democratize the points and to really give value. So Big Exchange is one product that really created just to address the concern that just was shared earlier on.
let
I
me
think
Sorry,
the key
Tim.
bit on this, I was going to say is, and I think to your point, that once those points have been used, it's an opportunity to understand that consumer's behavior and to embed yourself into that consumer's life by understanding what their likes are, what they prefer to use, how they choose to celebrate the use of those points. And if you gather that data, you can do some amazing things with that.
And what loyalty members have shown is that over 70% of them are happy to share their data.
Right.
So it's a seismic shift. And the issue of having so many points outstanding is to give them utility to the member. And we've had some examples as we've gone into COVID that merchants who have a loyalty program that's not properly set up and it's not properly costed have had to switch off that loyalty program because members start to redeem and all of a sudden they've got to come up with the cash for the merchant that's accepting the points. So, yeah, still a bit full.
Let me call out the next poll there, which I think somebody's already started to answer. So the poll question I'd like you to get to the audience is, post-COVID, which of these will drive loyalty most? Points and rewards, status and special treatment, bargains and good prices, health and safety messaging, having a big brand name, or providing something unique and different. So while we're waiting for those to come up, Louise, maybe
All of the above.
Yeah, all of them.
All of the above.
All the above.
Well, let me see what I've got here. So what I've seen results. Okay, so what's interesting here is status and special treatment is 0. So no one's voting for lounge access anymore, or instant upgrades, or preferred seating. No one really cares about a free glass of champagne in the Singapore Airlines lounge. Everyone's now talking about something unique and different. So what do we think about that? I mean, Louise, let me turn to you. A lot of the Accor loyalty programs are about instant upgrades and late checkout and being treated differently on arrival. But the crowd is telling us that that's not it. That's not, like, no one's even voted for that. What do you think?
I mean, it's not what our members are telling us, right?
Right.
Our members, they love the soft benefits, and that's late checkout, early check-in, lounge access, and it's not the free drink on arrival or anything like that, right? So maybe it's just the audience isn't illustrative of a normal loyalty member in the travel space. I don't know. It's certainly not what we see.
What do you think, Spencer? Will COVID change loyalty? Will people be less inclined about status and rewards and more inclined about health and safety, something different?
Well, I guess it's really on the situation basis, right? I think if today the context we're in this era, I would say definitely will read or distinct less. So obviously they want to see beyond what from your current travel ecosystem. For example, if you're in Singapore, you technically can't fly anywhere. So obviously they won't rank lounges and etc. something big. But for a market like Malaysia or even Thailand, Indonesia, where you still can have your some sort of domestic flight, maybe this will rank up better. But I think ultimately, I still go back to the same thing. You really need to know what is the real business economy value. It's not. It's really about giving your member what you want. So I truly believe that ultimately, although I agree everything on this poll, but I still think that probably something unique and different is the way to go. And whether is it now or post-COVID, this will always be the number one biggest criteria.
So let's Pat, let me bring you back in because I want to flip to the other side of the equation, which is paying suppliers. So we talked about B2C payments, we talked about loyalty. Are you seeing the same sort of, has COVID had this same sort of revolutionary change in the back end of how companies are paying other companies, as we've seen on the consumer side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think these trends was happening anyway. So B2B payments and fintech companies in that space have been on the journey. I think their products and services now are worth a lot more, and they're getting a lot more kind of business, because if you think about that whole kind of payments value chain, there's a lot of friction areas in the back end. And so there's a lot of companies looking to address those challenges. And if you think probably one of the largest fintech companies in the world is Stripe. And that's a B2B player. Essentially, it solves problems for so many merchants online. But I think what we noticed during lockdown is that created a lot of opportunities to create that automation in the back end, because a lot of small merchants in particular just really struggled and paying suppliers and making sure that whole piece was automated, because at the end of the day, the poor kind of merchant had to focus on trying to make a living.
Yep.
They wanted to get things as quickly automated as possible, and then try and get paid at the end of the day as quickly as possible, whereas card payments can take a couple of days for the merchant to actually receive. And so if there are other ways to do it, and especially with cash kind of on the decline during lockdown, you kind of needed to look at e-wallets, for example, so you could try and get your payment a bit quicker.
And I think, previously in that whole, business process automation, it was always seen as such a big effort, right? So that the fact that
you need a push.
Exactly. This was the push, but I think there's also COVID has facilitated some changes that you don't have to think of it as a massive transformation, right?
I think it was more than a push. It felt like a wrecking ball at the time, probably, but yeah.
Indeed.
So focusing that on travel, the travel industry lived for much of its life on B2B credit. Wholesalers, suppliers, between retailers and suppliers, and of course credit has become a huge problem when no one's making any money. We saw reports recently that Qantas was down for the last 8 weeks of cash in its bank account before it raised money. So maybe Louise, as a hotelier, what happens to credit after COVID? We go back to the old ways, or we have to have new solutions and payment processes to bring?
Well, I think there'd been a little bit of a evolution in credit anyway, and we saw credit being extended mostly to wholesalers that were kind of the middleman in the value chain, if you like. So there was quite a lot of credit extended there. But probably our biggest customers, apart from leisure, is your corporate traveller. And most of those actually had moved from corporate accounts to corporate credit cards. And so we weren't carrying as much credit, or the hotels weren't carrying as much credit. As a management company, we didn't carry the credit. But it's, there's a very domino effect.
Yes.
So there's probably been a reduction over time as most corporates, abandoned, accounts and actually put corporate credit cards in the hands of all their travellers.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little chat about what we're seeing in the startup scene. I'd be interested in people's thoughts about what are some of the interesting startups they've seen in fintech. Louise, back to you're a startup expert. Tell us about some of the interesting tech startups you've seen that we about.
Okay, so we can probably use expert with a little e, not a big e in startups. But
startup where we just start with the X, we drop the E completely. just expert.
Yeah, okay. Expert, right. Look, I mean, to me, we've spoken a little bit. So if you went back to the first slide, and you look at the countries specifically, and you see China with, 2 or 3 really big wallet, like super app wallet players, and what that's facilitated elsewhere. The 2 things for me that I mean, I sit on boards of, invest in, is buy now, pay later, or BNPL, as we call it. So it's just another form of credit. And if you look at where the countries that don't have big credit card penetration and young consumers in big numbers rising, a BNPL fills that gap of previously having to apply for credit cards, etc. I don't see it as the credit devil. I just see it as another form of credit. And BNPL is evolving. It used to be that the BNPL provider was the brand name, and now we're seeing evolution in BNPL players actually simply providing the functionality sitting behind the brand of the merchant, which I think is far more interesting, right? And the other area, which brings me back to loyalty, is I think in card linking. So for card linked loyalty, because it spans a range of opportunity from marketing, but also this instant point conversion, because card linked loyalty sits on the back of the rails of MasterCard, Visa, etc. And the new evolution of card linked loyalty is now integrated with wallets. So you're not just relying on the rails of the traditional credit card companies. So those 2 things for me, but for 2 very different reasons. And card linked loyalty, I mean, look out when that starts to work in a large sense, because those points will crush the merchants, I think.
Spencer, do you agree? Is that an exciting trend to look for, or does that scare you a little bit?
Oh, exciting time. Totally agree. Watch out this space.
Okay, all right. So I think we're down to the last 3 minutes or so. I want to do a quick little round of care, don't care. So I'm gonna say a word out there. If you've got a piece of paper, you can hold up with the word care or don't care. Sure, if you prep. Otherwise, a thumb up or a thumb down will do.
Oh yeah.
So blockchain. Do we care or not care? I mean, a thumb up or a thumb down will do. If you can't, I can't see what that says. That's a care.
Okay.
3 cares. Okay, so if we care, how come the travel industry is not doing much about it? Very quickly.
What
was his question?
Yeah, why is the travel industry not done anything about it?
Something about
It has. I think it takes a monumental shift of the enterprise.
And there's probably very few techies in the travel sector.
Right. Well, let's go to the next one. Facebook Libra, which is their blockchain currency. Do we care or not care? Let's do the thumb a little bit more visually kind of. I can't read that.
Well, don't care.
Okay, that's a really don't care. Lots of don't care. Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, so payment systems by the phones. Do we care or not care? Not care, kind of a little bit of half up. And then biometrics, so paying with your fingers or paying with your eyeballs, paying with your blood, your DNA. Do we care or not?
Yeah.
A little bit of. All right, let's finish off with the question. I think I'm borrowing a question from Suhun, but I promise you I wrote it before that. When this is all over, I want not only do I want to know where your first international trip's going to be, but I want your prediction as to when your first international flight's going to be. So what month do you think you're going to take your first trip, and where do you think you're going to go? Spencer, you first.
I really hope to be in Japan Olympic next year.
When do you think next year? What's your guess as to when you might be able to?
Mid-year.
Mid-year. Louise, where are you going to go, and when do you think you're going to do it?
I know I'm going next month to Sydney. I'll do the quarantine. Yeah, 4th of November, midnight.
Nice.
Going to Sydney. But
that'll be a bit awful. That'll be a bit awkward if they stick you in the Intercontinental. That'll be a bit awkward to leave.
Yeah, I know. Watch this space. I'm a little bit worried about that, actually. But then I'll come back. I'm lucky. I'm permanent resident, so I get to come back. And as of the 7th, I think it is, of October, without quarantine.
Oh, right.
Yeah, brilliant.
And Pat, where are you going, and when do you think you're going?
I'm going to London, and I'm going on the 12th of December.
Oh, well, I'm lost. Hear it. Good to hear it. Well, thank you very much. Well, that's the 30 minutes by my stopwatch clock. Please join me in thanking Louise, Spencer, and Pat. My name is Tim Hughes, Major Tom, signing off.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.